Hello, epic human. I am so happy that you're here today. If you're new to my world, I am Cindy O'Donnell. I'm a registered massage therapist, a naturopath, and a spiritual medium. Now, that being said, before we even get started, I want you to know that any of my videos on social media are for educational purposes. They are not a replacement for therapy, and we are bombarded with information. And I think actually that creates a bit of a problem when we go on a healing journey, is because cognitively, like, we know all the things, like we know why we do what we do, we know where the trauma and drama comes from, we probably even know the methods to healing it. But why is it that we're always stuck? So what I decided to do is to create some videos just to share some insights of things that I have seen in my treatment room over the last 20 years and things that I have learned along the way as a practitioner, and even a few things that really help me in my personal practice. So I'm always worried about sharing content online, especially now, because a lot of people just, there's so much information and certain things are nuanced. And we have the attention span of less than a goldfish now, by the way. They say when you create videos, it used to be if it was more than a minute, people would tune out, and then it kept going down and down. And now it's like your hook has to captivate the audience within like a millisecond. And our attention span, as far as like B-roll videos or like moving into the screen, is at, I think, 1.3 is the last research that I read. That is really sad that our attention span is 1.3 seconds. So these videos, unfortunately for you, if you have a short attention span, will probably won't tickle that part of your brain because they're not AI scripted. They are very much me sharing with you and sometimes just getting a few little downloads from the universe. So with all that being said, let's get started. Now, one of the techniques that I use a lot in my private practice and that I specialize in is somatic work. Now, soma means of the body. I know that a lot of people think somatic work means just talk therapy. It's actually not that. Soma is body. So when you experience something, the body might have a holding pattern. So let's say this could even be a physical body fall. You fall down, you're going to hold to protect yourself, and then your body might have that as a holding pattern. And we want to unwind that. We want to unwind the nervous system, the fascia, the muscles, everything involving the physical body. Now, sometimes what happens is when we do that, when we relax the body and when we unwind those holding patterns, there can be some emotions that come to the surface. And we call this an emotional release. Now, that is why the technique that I work with Upledger is called somato-emotional release, meaning we're working with the body and sometimes there can be an emotional release. This is no different than, listen, I've seen myself in a yoga class in a shavasana at the end and I start crying and I think I'm crying for nothing. But it's just I've now moved my body for 60 minutes and I've gotten outside my comfort zone. I've had some self-talk going on, and then suddenly the emotions come out. And the reason I share that with you is because we can easily get, I want to say, distracted online and think that our trauma healing or any healing has to be theatrical, has to be like explosive, when it doesn't really always have to be that way. And to be honest, in my treatment room, it's rarely that way. Sometimes it's just one little tear, one little goosebump. Sometimes it's a lot of crying, yes. Sometimes it's anger expressed. But the things we see on social media these days is like the convulsing and the shaking. And although that does happen sometimes, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think sometimes people look for this big breakthrough moment, this big aha for their healing. And they think, well, I haven't healed this thing because I've never had that big thing happen. And part of these videos is I want to teach you that it's in the little things, it's in the consistent little shifts that you create a really big difference. And when I learned somatic work, I did a course called Mastering the Inner Physician, and it is my favorite course by my favorite teacher and mentor. And we talked about a mandala. And we did a meditation, and the way he explained it, he says, you just draw a mandala. It doesn't have to be like the flowery looking mandalas, but just draw the image that you saw during your treatment. And then within that image, how did you feel? What emotions came up for you? And then you can take that home and you can continue to work with the mandala. And then as the mandala evolves, you bring that into your next treatment, your next session, and then we keep going. And I thought that was such a beautiful concept because even as a massage therapist, like if I'm working on your frozen shoulder and we're getting some release, but then you go home and you never do any remedial exercises, you're going to come back for a treatment and we're going to pretty much start from the basic again. But if I treat your shoulder and it gets better, and then you go home and you do your strengthening, stretching, you do all your home care, and then you come back, we pick up where we left off, but you may have also even gotten better. You may have also healed some more. So healing is very much collaborative. It's very much a co-creation. And I think that these videos, I'm hoping, are to support the people that come to see me for sessions, but also if you are not local to me and you can't come for a hands-on session, I do offer online sessions, but if you have a physical thing that needs releasing, you can go to your practitioner, someone that you trust and love, and get some sessions done, and then maybe start on your mandala and then bring that with you and work with them. Um, Anyways, I'm rambling, but it's because I feel like as practitioners also sometimes we can get in our own way of like having to be the end all be all for everyone when really that's not the case. And this video may be a little bit longer because for that reason, because I want to say if you're a practitioner watching this, I work with a lot of practitioners because who heals a healer? Like we also need healing. And we all have different approaches. So my motto is to make healing and spirituality both simple and fun. So I am going to simplify so many terms. So this is not an invitation for in the comment section to be like, but Cindy, the scientific term for this is actually this. Well, Cindy, you should do that. This is not what these videos are for. Because if someone wants that, they can actually read research papers and do all that and get that. I want to keep these topics simple. Again, we don't need the big theatrical ahas. We don't need the big theories behind everything and why does it work this way and why do we do things the way we do. Sometimes we just need a process that works, that we can practice on a daily basis to heal. So what I did is I took that mandala. I have a very vivid imagination, which is super good because active imagination is a really good way for us to heal. How active imagination works is basically when you close your eyes, can you imagine things? Now, I learned, to my surprise, that some people, when they close their eyes, they actually can't see anything. That's okay. This process can still work because one, you can train yourself to eventually visualize things when you close your eyes. But two, when you close your eyes, if I say close your eyes and imagine an apple, some of you will see an apple in your imagination and some of you will just know. It's a knowing inside. Okay, I know what an apple is. I'm closing my eyes. I don't see an apple. I don't, this is like clairvoyance. I don't see an apple, but I know, claircognizance, like I know there's an apple. So if when you close your eyes, you don't see things, it's okay. You can still use this process. It'll just look maybe a little bit different to you. And neuroplasticity, the way it works, neuroplasticity means our ability to learn something new. And the way that works is when we are in a relaxed state, when we are feeling safe, and we are receptive and curious to receiving or to creating change, then that can actually create change. Very simplified, but that's essentially how it works. So through neuroplasticity, when we have that safety in our body, again, this is why we want to stretch and move and feel our bodies. And when we feel safe to be in our body, and we are open and receptive to change, and we are curious to see what that could look and feel like, then we can create change. So you get to tell a different story. So when it came to the mandala, I thought, wow, I have stories that I visit time and time and time again. How many of you have done this, right? You go and you have this big breakthrough healing and you're like, oh my God, this was this big trauma. I finally healed it. Hooray. A little star, a little pat on the back. You know, you got your sticker. And then, I don't know, months go by, you go to another retreat and you're like, why is this showing up again? Like I thought I healed this. And it keeps the same story, it keeps showing up, but it's a bit different every time, or it's a different layer of it. Well, it's because it's like an onion. And I know that's an annoying analogy, but it is. You're going to peel the layers until you get to the core. But you know what happens? And people may have misled you. When you get to the core, it's still not gone because it's still a part of your story. For example, grief. If you are grieving the loss of a loved one, no matter how many retreats and no matter how many times you sing Kumbaya, it doesn't matter. The grief will still be there because it is someone that you loved that is no longer here in the physical world with you. That's valid. It's that the grief will transform a little bit more and more as time goes on. So it's not time heals everything, but it's the actions and the thoughts and the emotions that we do within that time that heals. So with active imagination, what we get to do is we get to tell a different story. So the first step into any process, and especially this one, is to first and foremost connect with your body and feel safe in your body. This can mean taking a few deep breaths. It can mean I love to lay down because then I feel like I'm supported by either my massage table or the ground or something. Like I feel supported in my body. So I feel the earth underneath me. I feel my heartbeat. I'm like, okay, it's there. That means I'm alive. And then I pay attention to my breath, not in a way of like analyzing or judging it, but just I am breathing. I am alive. Find a few things that can create this safety and this stability. The pyramid of needs, basically, the Maslow's pyramid of needs, like you need to feel safe. You need safety, shelter, all these things. So if you're trying to do a healing in a space that you don't feel safe, you're not going to heal. And it does happen sometimes that people come to me for a session and they're coming to the session to heal this great big trauma that they have because they've tried everything, but they're not even present in their body. So I say, well, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is you might come here thinking that we're going to have this big breakthrough and that you're going to heal all your trauma in one session. But the reality is I'm going to bring you back into your body. We're going to align your four bodies together, and then we'll be able to help you feel safe in that. And then that you can take home and continue the treatments and then come and check in when you need. So that is why I created this protocol, because to me the mandala felt more like a kaleidoscope, and that every time you turn the wheel or the tube, the picture changes, and I love that. But a part of me, because I'm we'll call me a little bit of a control freak, I guess, for now. We're working on that. We're working on the progress of that. But I was like, but what if I want to go back to the story? Or what if, in my hour session, it's not complete, but then I turn the thing and then the image is different. Like I'm never going to get back to that same image. So I created, and I love video games. So I visualized it as a map. And for me, a map was like Super Mario, because it just made sense, because there's, level 1, and then there's like 1, 2. So like you have 1, which is like your world, but then you have 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5. And then when you pass that, then you go to 2, and then it's like 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. And then you eventually get to Bowser, and then you have to beat Bowser. So for me, I visualized it as that because it made sense, because I kind of viewed every level, like 1, 2, 3, as my ages, like age 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then within those levels, or within those worlds, there were different levels. And now that's kind of evolved a little bit into more like a Zelda looking map, because as my visualizations or my active imaginations get more and more vivid, I'm adding characters, I'm adding things, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because Super Mario in the 2D format that was when I was a child doesn't necessarily fit that. But anyways, I digress. I'm just telling you, you can use whatever example you want. I know that some people love like Harry Potter, so they'll create in their world, it's almost like that. But nonetheless, what I do is I create a map, and I call that the mandala. And in any video game, you have your starting point, you have your home base, your safe point, right? When you hit start on an old school Nintendo, right? It's like save game. So you hit start. And you want to be able to do that because you don't want to be always healing, because that's exhausting. You need to go out and enjoy life. So if you're obsessed with healing, then you're actually never going to heal, because you're always in this, I don't know, you're always in the energy of healing, of there's something that needs to change. And what we want you to do is, okay, I'm working on this while I'm creating more of this. So and I think that's when I shifted from the Mario map to the Zelda map, because I didn't want that, like, there's no boss to beat at the end, because at the end we just cross over, because we're all going to die someday. Well. So we have a home base. And this is important because it goes back to me saying when you are in your body. So we have 4 bodies. We have the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual bodies. And you want a place where you can go, where it's safe, and you can make sure that all 4 bodies are with you. And when you go to that safe place where all four bodies are with you, that's when you rest, that's when you replenish, that's when maybe you have your inventory of your potions and elixirs and you have your different costumes, right? This we call these archetypes and personas, and we'll talk about that in other videos. But archetypes and personas play a big part in your healing journey because you are not the same version of you when you are at work as you are with your friends, especially if you're neurodivergent and you've gotten really good at masking. Um, I always joke, I'm like, you have a customer service voice and then you have a regular voice, right? Most of us do. So these are different costumes, different masks, but you have those in your home base, in your little tickle trunk with all your elixirs and your costumes and your potions. So you need to reset every now and then. So if you're always on the journey, if you're always healing something, if you're always out there doing the work and you're never checking in to see how it's going, you're never tuning into your body, you may exhaust yourself. You may exhaust yourself on your healing journey. And we don't want that. We want you to check in. Now, with your home base, you get to decide if you want to go on an adventure, like on a great big adventure. Are you going off way, way far into the abyss to heal something big? Or maybe you're just adventuring to the cafe to see what happens, right? You get to choose your adventure every day. And I know certain things are outside of our control. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when it comes to how to integrate this process into everyday life. Now, when you're doing a healing, it could be that something came up. So you were at home base, you came to Cindy's magical hut of healing. And then we did some somatic work and you had a release. You had a good cry. And that good cry was activated by a memory. And that memory is one that you either cognitively knew of and you visit often, or maybe it just feels like it came out of nowhere. That memory that comes up during a session, that is a world. So you want to take that world and you want to put it somewhere on your map. Now, if it's not a pleasant memory, you're going to be like, Cindy, why do I want to put it on my map? Well, because when people say just let it go, you're not Elsa. You can't just let it go. It's a part of your life. It came up for a reason. So even if it's unpleasant, and we call this shadow work, you still want to have it on your map, but know that you don't have to visit it all the time. But when it does come up, when you do wander off and you visit that little world, you get to decide which ones of your costumes, which ones of your persona you want to visit that world from. For example, it could be something comes up and it's a world or it's a level that you felt not good enough, you felt not heard, not seen, not respected. You were very vulnerable, you had no boundaries, and you were exhausted, depleted, and it just didn't end well. Well, next time it pops up, you get to see that version of you and you get to say, hey, psst, come here. Come here. I know you're in this world and this is how it's going, but I want you to know that eventually you actually make it out of this world into home base, you replenish, and then you create a bunch of different worlds, and life is really amazing. So I want you to know that, and insert whatever you want that version of you to know. I'm not even going to say, talk to your inner child and tell her you love her. No, because if you don't feel like doing that, then that's not a part of your process. That's could be bypassing. This is what makes this process so beautiful and unique. It's because you get to choose what conversations you have with the characters that are in that world. And then you get to say, okay, and that's enough for now because it's bringing up a lot of emotions, or it's getting heavy, or just it feels complete for now. And you say, bye, I'll see you later. And then you walk back to home base, you replenish, and that world is there. You're not pretending it never happened, but you're not necessarily visiting it every day. And that's where I'm saying, even with things like grief when it first shows up is usually, I don't know about you, but my world when it was a big grief, it was like a really rainy, dark forest. It was sad. It was a place where it didn't feel comfortable. It's where I went and like I would scream and just feel all the feels. And now there's certain characters that were in that forest that it's not that I'm not sad that they're gone, but it doesn't feel that environment. So they are now in a different environment where it's still sad that they're gone, but it's more of a place where we go and we sit on a bench and we have a good chat. and I connect with them, and we call that channeling. And I believe that although I am a spirit medium, I believe that everybody has the ability to channel. The problem is a lot of us don't visit all the different worlds to transform them, to heal the heaviness, to then be able to go sit on that bench and chat with our loved ones. That can be another video for another day. So your map is filled with different worlds, and you get to change the scenery, you get to change what it looks like, and it's filled with different personas, and you get to change who they are. I'm turning the page here because I have my own little notes because of my world. For example, I have a world where my inner critic, we all have the inner critic, right? The one that's like, you can't do that. Why would you do that? Like the one that's always chirping. So I've created a world for my little chirpy chirper, and I call her more so my warrior, my ego, right? Like I remember when I said we have 4 bodies: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So the mental body, the ego, or the warrior, as I call her, she used to lead the path. Like I used to go home base, and then she'd be like, here's where we're going today, and like she'd lead the show. And I said, no, hold on. I'm taking back my power, and you get to be in my world, and I will call upon you when I need you. But for now, here's where you're going. And I put her here in my hometown. We have theater. It's called the Capitol Theater, and it's like this beautiful theater with like, it's like got all the trimmings, like the antique style, and anyways, it's grandiose. It's beautiful. So imagine that, because someday I want to do a talk there. I want to do a reading in this theater. So I do still want to connect with this theater from time to time. But I've put her on the stage in the theater. But what I've decided to do is sometimes I will attend her show. I will sit down and I'll say, what do you have today for me? And then I'll let her yak. And I'll say, cool, I don't like this story. I don't like this show. It's not what I'm choosing. So you can keep doing your thing, and I'm just going to go over here to a different world. And then I leave. And then I go off on my adventure. And she can yak in an empty theater if she wants to, but have at her. So this works for me, but for you, it might be different. For you, you might put her in a backpack. For you, you might send her off to the dark forest. Use whatever images, whatever themes feel good for you. My inner child, and it's funny because I tried to draw it. P.S. If you're like, I want to draw my map, but I'm not good at drawing. Like if you saw what mine looks like they're not good drawings by any means. Like I draw a sun like a circle with like little lines. But my inner child, she's in a place that's very Disney-esque, right? The clouds are made of cotton candy, and just to tickle my left and right brain, I play with like what would they taste like. There's just rainbows and candy everywhere. There's waterfalls that are made of like, I don't know, tropical juice. It's just beautiful. There's unicorns everywhere. And when I go visit her, we're just playful and childlike. That's where I go to just nourish my inner child. Well, my inner child's world didn't always look like that because growing up, I kept hearing, well, realistically speaking, or be real, or, oh, rose-colored glasses. Oh, there she is in her land of imagination again. And again, not by my teachers, parents, or guardians' fault. It's just that's the world we live in, right? Someday you have to grow up. But I decided to then, when I first visited that inner child who was not in that world, and I said, hey, yo, what would you need? And this type of world is what she would need. Well, we didn't get there overnight. I had to talk to her, comfort her, let her feel seen, let her feel heard. I had to have that inner child work to then shift her environment. So her environment, every time I'd visit, would shift. So one day, the dark, rainy clouds, I said, you know what? What would you like for clouds? And inner child was like, I'd like cotton candy clouds. I said, perfect. We're going to do cotton candy clouds. And then one day she was like, I would like unicorns. So we brought unicorns. Every time I would visit, we would change something in her world. Therefore, every time I would visit, a little part of me would heal. This is why I'm saying you might not go into your world and completely destroy it and completely rebuild it in one session. So sometimes it's not going to feel like a big spiritual awakening or a big breakthrough. It's just going to be a simple shift of stormy cloud to cotton candy cloud. And I have the castle for my inner goddess, for my inner wisdom. And then I have the now my I have my warrior who's also like in the forest, and it's an adventure, and I feel safe because obviously it's a warrior. She keeps me safe. So when I want to try something new that's scary, it's like, okay, well, come on, we're gonna go off on an adventure in the forest. And in that world, I don't know, I have a rabbit that follows me. In my inner child's world, I have a squirrel because I had an imaginary friend named Chippy, and Chippy is with me in my inner child world. And then in my emotional world, interestingly enough, it used to be it's in the mountains. And I love the mountains. But my emotional world, when I first visited it, it was during one of my trainings for somatic emotional release. And it was the mountains, and it was really beautiful. But it was all like over here was the mountains and the beautiful scenery. But like over here where I was, it was kind of like clammy and moist, if I can say that word. I know some of you are going to be really mad at that, but here we are. It was like, it was not comfortable. It was gloomy, and I wanted to go to the mountains, but there was this great big, it was like a fence, like, you know, those old castle. It's like a wall, and then it's got a big door with the great big piece of wood that closes the door and the big metal hinges, and it was very heavy. And that was stopping me from going to the mountains. And I know some of you are already like, that's very symbolic, isn't it? Yes, it is, because I had a lot of healing to do there. So I didn't have to do all just the emotional body healing and open the castle door and do that and call it a win, because that's not how it happened. Because opening that door did not feel safe for a really, really long time. But changing a little bit of the scenery where I was, seeing, okay, can I change the six hinges to three hinges and a handle? Oh, I can do that. Okay, perfect. Can the wall have, I remember at one time we were doing exchanges, practitioner to practitioner exchanges, and one practitioner was like, okay, and tell me what it looks like. And I told him, and he's like, could you change it in any way today? And I was like, no. And he was like, okay, but without letting anyone in, is there something you could do that would slightly bring you one step closer to the other side? And I was like, I can put a window. And he was like, perfect, put a window. I was like, but wait a minute, it's going to be a bulletproof window. And it's just a little window, just so I can peek and see who's on the other side. And, we laughed, but that's all I was ready to do at that time. And that's okay. So sometimes when we try to rush our process, it's not really helpful. So as I was doing that with her over here, putting windows in over there, I was simultaneously going over here sometimes and doing cotton candy clouds, and I was going to here with the rabbit and visiting this, and then I was going to the goddess and saying, I trust that everything's divinely guided. All of that all at the same time. So this is where I'm saying it is like a kaleidoscope, where every turn, every time you turn, every time you play in one of the worlds, your entire map is changed. And your map is a symbolism for your reality, past, present, future. So your map is you, is all that is you. And you are the main character. You are the magic. You are the magic embodied in human form, who gets to go on these adventures and discover these things. And yes, some of those things are sometimes like going into the spirit world. That is also on your map. And that is why I say, like, I hear people say, like, oh, we're going to go to 3D, 4D, 10D, 100D. Listen, why would you want to ascend to another dimension all the time when, like, there is so much to discover on your map here on Earth, and you came to Earth in a 3D body to have a 3D experience? And if you escape that all the time, all you're doing is you're hovering on top of your map all the time, having all these spiritual moments, never really living the human experience. So you're not really evolving that much after all. It may feel like you are, but that could also be a form of spiritual bypassing. Anyways, I can go on a lot of little tangents and a little side quests, which is why I love the map, because the map can be all of our side quests. But I'm hoping that this helps you create your own mandala or your own version of a map, so that you can experience your own healing and that you can not stay stuck in a world for too long. If it feels like the mental body has taken over and you're repeating the same story over and over and over and over again, I invite you to push pause on your game. Push pause, say, okay, wait a minute. When was the last time I went to home base and felt neutral? Because we sometimes strive to heal to feel better, because it doesn't feel good right now. We want to feel better, but we forget that neutral is still better than a not good feeling. So if you can go back to home base and reconnect with your body, and you can do that by breathing, by touching the ground, by phoning a friend and having a good conversation, whatever it may be, you go into the comfort of your own home and you practice some self-care, and then you get to choose, okay, what adventure do I want to go on? And you knowing that you get to rewrite the story, when you go into the world, you can go into the world as the observer instead of being completely immersed in it. And that's a huge part of healing heavy emotions and doing shadow work is, can you look at a situation and can you detach the emotion from the person or from the situation? Because that's, I could be angry at you, but really if I detach you and anger, and then I look at that and I say, okay, where else does anger live? And I can see anger's in a few other worlds, okay? And you live here. And why am I angry at you here? Well, because I didn't do this, you didn't do that, this, da, 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 da. Okay. So when you're in that world, can you tell a different story? Can you say, okay, knowing what I know now, this is how I would have handled this. Okay. And knowing that, would you still be angry? Well, no, had I done this, that, and the other thing, then I wouldn't be angry. Perfect. So remove anger from that world because it doesn't belong there. And now you're more empowered in that reality. But that's not to beat yourself, because some people do this process and then they beat themselves up, right? With coulda, shoulda, wouldas. But you couldn't do that from that version of you. So this is why at first I had done it as Mario, like level 1, 2, 3, 4 with ages, because you can't defeat Bowser. You can't, is it 6 or 8, whatever, level 6 or 8, you can't defeat that until you learn what buttons are jumps and what buttons are the flower power and what buttons do that. Like, you, level 1 starts to train you, starts to prepare you to be able to build the skills and the resilience to get to the last level. And if you can look at life that way, you didn't know then what you know now, but you keep bringing in that into your healing. But it's like, you need to stop beating yourself up. And now that you know more and you know different, you will do different. It's normal. It's called evolution. And when we stop evolution, we die. So first and foremost, can you feel safe in your body? Second, can you forgive yourself? And can you forgive others? And not necessarily can you forget what they've done, can you lose that lesson, but more so, can you stop visiting that world in the way you're telling the story? How would you tell the story? And there's a reason why I do a lot of one-on-one spirit medium readings. And it's so interesting because sometimes spirit wants to say things like, I wasn't kind, or I did this, that, and the other thing that was not okay. And sometimes the loved ones will be like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, no. And sometimes they'll be like, no, no, they were so kind. Because oftentimes when people die, it's like we forget anything they ever did that was bad because we feel like, oh, well, we don't want to remember them that way. So why don't you do that for the people that are alive too? Why don't you do that for yourself too? So I call this the 4-body blueprint for healing. 4-body because physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And the reason I do 2 sides of it is because there's the light side and then there's the shadow side of it. One can't exist without the other. So if you're constantly chasing happiness, you can only be as happy as you are willing to risk being sad. It's just how it works. You're afraid of loving really, really big because then if it ends, it's going to hurt really, really big. And you can't have one without the other. Everything kind of balances out in this ebb and flow. So that's why I've called it that. And the blueprint, because we all have an initial blueprint within us. It is our core beliefs, our core values, our emotions, things that have shaped us and formed us. But when we are a baby and then when we grow up, we don't necessarily form that consciously from a mental body state. We form that through the people who we observe, right? That's why children are super curious. And that builds our blueprint. But the good news is that if you have a blueprint that doesn't work for you, you can change it. And the way you do that is exactly what you did as a kid. You let yourself be curious. You observe the world around you and you say, I learned this way, but there's a bunch of other ways to do this or to believe this or to think this. I like that one. I'm going to be curious to see what it's like. And that's where I think we've gotten very, instead of being collective beings, we've gotten very self beings. And we're not meant to be self, we're meant to be tribes, communities. So find someone who believes the thing you want to believe, or find someone who's done the thing you want to do and ask them how they got there. And it could be that that's always been their blueprint. Or it could be that their blueprint was very different, and then there was a pivotal moment where they decided to change their world. And you learn from them. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Everybody's world, like we're all living our own little world and we've all created things. Maybe some of you, just the fact that I said cotton candy clouds, are like, oh my gosh, that would be so fun. So today, that's what you do. And maybe some of you are like, oh my gosh, I don't even have a home base. I'm so excited to decide what that looks like. Some of you, the home base is going to be like a castle. Some of you, it's going to be like a little hobbit house in the forest. Some of you are going to have like super organized closets of elixirs and costumes, when some of you are just going to be like, no, mine's super minimalistic and I call on like a wizard or a magical fairy and like she just brings me what I need when I need it. There's no wrong way to create your world. It is your world. And that is the power of imagination. And we've really lost that. And in a world filled with, AI generated images and things like that, yeah, you can create this on AI if it helps you. But I would encourage you to first and foremost create it in your imagination to get that feeling, that visual internally. And then, yes, maybe you can plug it into an AI thing to generate an image, if that's what you really, really feel you need. But even better than that, if you were to just draw it, even if it's stick figures, because my cotton candy forest or my cotton candy world, for example, like the waterfall is just lines, but I know it's a waterfall. So when I look at it, I know it's a waterfall. When I close my eyes, I can go there easily. But if you were to look at it, you'd be like, what is it? Everything she just described is not drawn on this picture. So sometimes it's not about the actual image, but it's about well, all the time, it's not about the image, it's about the emotion that the image invokes. And that's the same thing for vision boards, which I have a whole entire vision program and I talk about that. It's not about the pictures that you slap on the board. It's about how does that picture make you feel, and does that inspire you to take action towards those things. So play with this, make it fun. Don't make it be another chore that you add to your to-do list. You are already probably very overwhelmed, but if you can just play with this and every now and then just go visit different worlds or create different worlds, and at the very least, at the beginning and the end of every night, go to your home base and reset just to hit neutral. You should start your day feeling pretty neutral and then go, okay, and how do I want to feel? I think today's going to be a great day. I've got a lot on my plate, but here's how I'm going to do it. Just set yourself up for success. And then at the end of the day, you go back to home base and you say, okay, how was today? What are a few things that went well? What are a few things that maybe didn't go so well, but I would do differently? At the beginning of every month, maybe at the last day of the month, you look, okay, this month, you look through your camera roll and say, okay, what are some things that I did that were really, really fun? What were some things that I did that weren't so fun? What do I want to create this next month? What are some things that I said I wanted to do, but I didn't do, and a month has already passed? This is not to guilt you or shame you, but it's to keep you accountable, to say, okay. So instead of waiting a whole year, you say, okay, no, next month I'm going to do a little bit different. And maybe it's not overhauling your whole life. Some people want to overhaul their whole diet. Maybe you just start with drinking enough water and you do that for a whole month. And then that becomes integrated and a part of who you are. And then you add something else. So you add another elixir, you add another potion. So my goal is to help you, again, making healing both simple and fun. So I'm curious to see and to hear all your stories and what you do with this process, because it is one that has served me well. And I'm going to continue to talk about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about all of the topics that we've mentioned in this video. But if you have any specific questions, drop them in the comments and let me know, because that just helps me create content that has value to you. And if you are a fellow healthcare practitioner, feel free to use this concept in your own clinic. Like, I want us all to win. There are enough people on the planet that need healing, and we all are really, like, it's cheesy, but we really are all in this together. And my goal is to create more togetherness than division. So I hope this video has helped you, and I look forward to hearing about all of your stories soon. And this was the Mana 4-Body Blueprint to Healing with me, Cindy O'Donnell.